What's up, everyone? So recently we've been going through all of the Showa Godzilla movies. I bought the Criterion release, and we've watched the regional variants as well. So we'll talk about all of those. We're also going to go on to do the Heisei, Millennium, Legendary, all the eras. So we're going to do it one era at a time. Hopefully this will be our little pet project for this year. So Aiden, first we had the original Godzilla, Japanese version.
The original Godzilla is very good. Before the transition to the sillier parts of the Showa era, which is all of them after this one, basically. This is a movie that has ideas. It's about nuclear war. Godzilla is basically the embodiment of the devastation caused by nuclear war. It's a little basic, obviously. It's a pretty soft metaphor. It has really impressive effects for the time. Not always. There's some parts that look a little crusty now.
Unlike most of the Showa era, though, Godzilla actually looks somewhat threatening. The effects definitely aged.
There's an attempt to make Godzilla threatening.
I could see how in the 50s it would be more scary.
But they have some really cool effects with the building destruction. They have lots of matte paintings and all sorts of cool stuff to bring it to life. The story's really basic, and the characters are as well, which is fine because they're not really the point. I think the plot with Serizawa making the weapon to destroy Godzilla, the oxygen destroyer, and not wanting governments to get their hands on it because he doesn't want it to be used as a weapon, is fairly strong. And it's good. It's really simple, but it's actually about something. Godzilla's depicted as a threat. I like it. What about you?
I also enjoyed it quite a bit. Obviously, this film leads into a metaphor which very few Showa-era films actually did. A lot of them kind of were just shit happens with the humans, monster fight. I mean, that's kind of all the Godzilla movies, a lot of them at least. Following this, every once in a while you have ones that lie out. But, a lot of that stuff. Like you said, the effects were decent for the time. The human plot was fairly memorable. Like it took itself a lot more seriously than later films did. And one critique I have of the Showa era in general is a lot of the human plots are bad. But this movie manages to have a fairly decent human plot, like a little love triangle. You have so a lot of interesting stuff with that. But I mean, like the famous Godzilla score was here, which was well utilized. There's a lot of cool effects for the time, and especially so close after the bombing. This is 9 years later, so it's still poignant in a lot of Japanese people's heads. So the metaphor is fairly clear, but it is an interesting way to look at it, and I think it's also kind of a poignant way to talk about nuclear fallout, because Godzilla is directly created by nuclear fallout, so it's definitely a metaphor for kind of like the after effects of nuclear warfare. I guess, but I suppose in a way it's also incumbent of the destruction as well, with Godzilla destroying Tokyo and such. But overall, I thought it was a very solid film.
In the process of bringing Godzilla to other countries, they made a couple different versions to kind of localize it. It was a lot less common to bring foreign films to other countries at the time.
Right.
So there was a United States release, which was called Godzilla King of the Monsters, that has some differences. Connor, what do you think about the English version, King of the Monsters?
I don't hate the English version necessarily. It doesn't totally butcher the source material, though it seems kind of unnecessary. So basically, there's an American reporter who basically is just there during the events of the film.
A prehistoric monster the Japanese call Godzilla has just walked out of Tokyo Bay. He's as tall as a 30-story building.
So what we have is a dubbed, edited down version of the movie with additional scenes by Raymond Burr, who played Ironside, and Perry Mason.
Yep.
And he
Perry Mason sits in a room with two
essentially
Japanese
explains the plot. They did some weird things where they had body doubles for the main cast who weren't in the American production.
Yeah, shot from behind really
shot
badly
from
in
behind
two
so
scenes.
that it looks like Raymond is more important to the plot than he is. The issue is Raymond's the protagonist, but he's not very important.
He doesn't
He's
do
just
anything.
a guy.
He
He's
just explains
there.
the plot.
I can hardly believe what has just happened. Now it seems Tokyo has no defense.
And then meanwhile, the Japanese plot happens with the actual main characters of the film. Their drama and them trying to stop Godzilla. It's not a horrendous way to watch it. It would, if it's your only option, like you have a VHS lying around and that's it, I wouldn't say it ruins the film, but I think the idea of it kind of takes a lot away. But I guess, audiences of the 1950s were fairly narrow-minded when it came to a fully Japanese cast, definitely reading subtitles or something, so I understand why it exists for that time, though it's not really worth watching today.
The biggest
for most
issue.
people.
The biggest issue is that the Japanese stuff is filmed on much lower quality film stock and cameras.
Oh yeah.
So the Japanese stuff all looks noticeably worse than the scenes where
even-
Raymond Burr's
even
standing around
watching
in
the
office.
original cut, there's some jumpy moments with the editing and the camera clearly kind of cutting out for a second there. So yes, it's very bizarre because you do have American style cameras from the 1950s which upscale very nicely and look very nice. But you essentially in the Japanese cut had a highly mediocre camera in comparison, so it is very obvious what's an added scene for the American version and which was intended to be in the film. We watched one other cut also being significantly different, the Italian version by Luigi Cozzi. Cozzi? I don't know.
Cozzi, I think.
Cozzi. There was another French cut, but this is the interesting one.
The French cut is basically just a dub. The Italian version
is the Snyder cut of Godzilla.
Some crazy person got his hands on a Godzilla film reel. The whole thing's dubbed in Italian. It hasn't been subtitled anywhere because no one gives a shit. For some reason, the Italians found it pertinent to add color to the movie. But they don't use impressive techniques like Technicolor. They just splashed ink seemingly randomly all over the film. So the film will generally be like half of a scene will just be blotchy red and the other half will be blotchy yellow. There only seems to be 4 colors, red, pink, yellow, and blue, which are distributed seemingly at random. And on top of that, the only other major change is that there's footage of World War II spliced in. So there's just a lot of videos of corpses. Tanks. Yep. It's not a good way to watch the movie.
There's a lot of darkness. So this movie, the original movie has a lot of dark moments, and specifically with the Godzilla stuff, which I think is a good way to kind of make the effects look better, which I like. This version, opting to put the dark red on the black, makes it very fucking hard to tell what's going on. When it comes to Godzilla and stuff. And it generally looks really bad, and I don't understand the artistic decisions of the color. I genuinely think he just said, well, we need some color, so we'll put color on here, despite a lack of rhyme or reason to do so in the way they have. Let's move on to the second Godzilla movie. Godzilla Raids Again. So Godzilla dies at the end of the first Godzilla. And you would think, I don't know, there's just another fucking Godzilla for some reason. They're like, he's probably from the same species. Let's show you 8 minutes of stock footage. And then you see like every fucking effect shot from the first movie smashed into the 75-minute runtime.
Yep.
Then they're like, that's fucking great, that's amazing. And they bury Godzilla in ice.
Okay, to be fair about the stock footage, at the time there was no home media, so catching up people might have been a little more pertinent, but
there wasn't like a pertinent reason. It felt like I mean, Godzilla. They're like, well, Godzilla died, now he's back. I mean, like what? I think in the fucking special features of the Criterion, they said like a fifth of the population of Japan had seen the last movie. So I think it was kind of just like, hey, remember this?
Yeah. The more pertinent thing about Godzilla Raids Again is that it has the first monster battle.
Yes, it does.
Where the Godzilla 2, who's the main character for the rest of the Showa movies, because Godzilla 1 was an asshole and died, fights Anguirus. One of his most iconic rivals and mostly friend guy. The fight doesn't actually have a lot to do with the plot, which is people are scared that Godzilla's back. And Godzilla just fights Anguirus at a temple, and they smash up the temple and fall into the ocean. And then the movie continues for another 20 minutes where Godzilla just goes back to Japan and starts stepping on people.
Yeah. And then he like nests in the Arctic for no reason, and they freeze him.
Yeah, I guess they thought this might be the last one, so they gave it a real ending instead of just having him swim into the sea. Raids Again is okay. It's fine. It feels like they rushed something out just to have a sequel.
I think it's worth noting that you would think they would try, that one of the scientists along the way would try to like create a second oxygen destroyer at some point. Like, fuck, that was incredibly effective. Maybe we should give another crack at the whole oxygen destroyer concept.
Serizawa was one of a kind.
He's a one-time guy. Even though his doppelgangers in every fucking movie. It's like 18 twin brothers.
Yeah. The guy who plays Serizawa appears in like 20 of these movies.
Yeah.
Out of like 23. And he just plays different characters. So next up was Godzilla's first versus film. The versus films would become basically the staple of the series. With King Kong versus Godzilla. Somehow Toho got the rights to do this. And in the movie, some failing Japanese news station TV thing goes to record King Kong. which pisses King Kong off, kind of. Well, not really. King Kong just kind of like stomps around and picks up trees and stuff. He doesn't do anything. Godzilla shows up and they fight. This is where the series kind of goes completely off the fucking rails, because there's like, for some reason, King Kong gets powered up by electricity. With no explanation, he just like grabs some electricity at one point and gets stronger. There's the balloon scene. There's the infamous tree scene where
Godzilla shoves a tree down
King Kong shoves a tree down Godzilla's throat, and then Godzilla launches a burning tree back at him. It's really stupid. It's a lot of fun in all the worst ways. It's just a dumb cartoon where the big monkey and the big lizard punch each other.
Yep.
Yeah, it's enjoyable. It's fun. What'd you think?
I thought King Kong vs. Godzilla was decent. This is definitely where the Godzilla formula we see for the rest of the Showa era is concrete. This is what it is for the rest of the films. There are weird genre variations. This is the first really weird genre variation. Like the first one, it's a monster movie in a traditional sense. It does have an underlying theme. The second one is a monster movie. Kind of remove the theme because the first one made money, but we want to make more. This one is where it concretes, dead ass daytime. Godzilla goes out to a field and he matches wits with another monster. Who happens to be Universal's King Kong, who did their own American cut, which is fairly similar.
Yeah, the American cut.
There's differences, but it's not as dramatic as King of the Monsters versus Gojira.
Not even close.
Yeah, it takes a very comedic route. It sort of follows the story of King Kong up until the part where the lizard's captured and then they fight. They fight.
Ah, too bad. We forgot to bring candy.
The big monkey fights the big lizard.
The balloon part is
Really weird. But like they kind of set it up like, okay, we'll do the plot of King Kong, and then they say fuck all that. Now he fights the big lizard. Yeah, the tree is a notable part of the action sequence. Recently paid homage to in the new Godzilla vs. Kong movie. With
King Kong puts his axe handle in Godzilla's mouth.
Yep. It definitely takes a turn for the series. It really changes the tone. I still enjoy the idea of how these Godzilla movies work. If you don't enjoy this film, you're not gonna enjoy the rest of the Showa era. This is the
If you don't like,
this is the blueprint.
if you don't
this
like
is the
this one, you might
blueprint.
as well skip the rest of the Showa era because you're in for a long ride.
You're basically done after this. Anyways, next we have Mothra versus Godzilla. Which is another spin-off film. Much like King Kong, Mothra had his own franchise, and he's gonna match wits with Godzilla. This very much transitioned Mothra into a fully Godzilla character.
Yep.
You got Mothra's two weird little fairies that sing songs the whole fucking time.
This one has a lot of song
fairies. There's
sequences.
islanders and shit.
There's like 4 entire song sequences in
And
Mothra.
then, you know, the same old. Mothra dies, little lizard
The larvas
come out and spray Godzilla. It's fine. I found it quite a bit more boring than the King Kong one. Mostly because I got bored of out of 75 minutes, the 30 minutes of this shit was the two little angels singing songs.
That did get old, yeah.
That is very, maybe it's a very Japanese thing. But yeah, I mean, it was watchable. It was fine, but certainly not my favorite. What did you think of Godzilla versus Mothra?
Mothra's pretty decent. It established Mothra. Mothra's in a lot of these movies going forward, so you better get used to her. Much like Anguirus, she's basically immediately just U-turned into being an ally for Godzilla. Mothra's okay. The Islander and fairy plot is not interesting. So you're kind of just left with, it's okay. What do you want me to say? More so than ever, Mothra vs. Godzilla is basically what turns Godzilla into just being a superhero.
Yeah.
Like, he's no longer a threat. People generally like him. He occasionally stomps on some buildings, but for the most part, he's just like a good guy who fights.
He's the villain in King Kong, but in Mothra, and he's still kind of the villain in Mothra. I would say
Mothra
more
and
so
Godzilla
Ghidorah.
are kind of both good.
They're like simultaneous good guys that face head to head, like a Batman v Superman situation.
What does that mean? Why did you say that name?
But starting at Ghidorah, he's just dead ass a good guy.
Yeah, and Godzilla, he's a little bit like chaotic and neutral, and then in Ghidorah, he's kind of just completely gone.
Chaotic neutral.
Yeah, and now he's just full blown lawful good.
Yeah.
Okay. So in Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, there's an alien.
It's actually Ghidorah the three-headed monster.
Ghidorah the three-headed monster. There's a princess alien lady from space. Who comes to Earth, and some mafia guys want her bracelet.
Can I boil this down? It's invasion of the body snatchers, and then a big three-headed dragon shows up to fight Godzilla.
Yes, that is the plot. This isn't the one where they go to the.
No, they go to space in invasion of the Astro-Monster.
Right. So
I like how
anyway,
it goes. Ghidorah goes from Ghidorah the three-headed dragon to the Astro-Monster. They like troll it, but Ghidorah's still on the
We'll get to that in a second. We'll get to that in a second. So yeah, the plot is really bizarre. There's these fucking Japanese. They're not even like Yakuza. They're dressed like old timey 1930s bootleggers. They try to get her necklace, and then all of a sudden Ghidorah shows up. Because Ghidorah is from Venus and the princess is from Venus.
Yeah, the princess is like a reincarnation, or was she possessed? I thought she was a real princess, because wasn't she on like a jet or something?
Yes.
And she's like, oh, and then like everything.
She's a real alien princess from Venus. Anyway.
Okay, so she wasn't.
But she gets amnesia.
Okay, yes.
So, Ghidorah shows up, and Ghidorah is the strongest monster, and he beats Godzilla. But then Mothra comes in, and Godzilla and Mothra stomp on Ghidorah's heads, and he flies into the sunset.
Yeah.
Happily ever after. What'd you think of Ghidorah the three-headed monster?
Yeah, this is a plot that really lost me, too. It was weird, dude. The action was cool. I thought it was a fun action movie. But Ghidorah kind of looks like shit, but that's sort of the charm of these movies.
Yeah.
Like, coming up, we have Ebirah, Horror from the Deep, which is just a big lobster.
The funny thing about Ghidorah, Ghidorah always looks fucking goofy, because Ghidorah has the three heads, which are all necks, and he has the wings, and he has the tails. So they have wires connected to the necks, wires connected to the head, wires connected to the wings, and everywhere he goes, Ghidorah kind of just like flops around.
Right.
And then the climax of this movie is literally Godzilla pushes over King Ghidorah and stomps on his necks repeatedly, and then Ghidorah flies away. And
Godzilla around
like 4
this
seconds
time
later.
also became a real rock thrower because it was just
Oh my
cheap.
god, yeah.
So in every movie, Godzilla, like, his main attack is like just chucking rocks.
Well, it's either chucking rocks or hitting rocks with his tail to fling them because
he'd kick rocks
the atomic breath was too expensive. So there's a lot of scenes of Godzilla throwing rocks at people.
Kicking a rock. He's a big rock guy.
He loves.
Good
the
thing there's
rocks.
like a fucking excess of like, because Godzilla's like 60 meters in the Showa era, so
Yes.
we're talking
20
like
meter
15
boulders.
meter rock boulders just laying on the ground, numerous per film
Yeah.
that he can just chuck around and kick. Bizarre.
Yeah, it's a very
bizarre film.
It's a very
It's a-
weird movie.
It's a film.
The fight is really fun. The plot does not make sense at all. This one's enjoyable. This one's pretty funny. Yeah.
Speaking of Ghidorah, the Ghidorah duology continues, an invasion of the Astro-Monsters.
このように地中に隠れて住まねばならないのです。怪物だ。
This is Godzilla's foray into 1950s science fiction. So there's this alien race that wants Godzilla and Rodan to fight Ghidorah or Monster X, because they don't know him as Ghidorah until they're like, you know him as Ghidorah. And okay, but first the astronauts go into space and land, and this guy wants his patent for his patented
His
loud
toy.
loud toy. His toy that just makes like a loud ringing
And-
sound.
He's dating the astronaut's sister, and the astronaut's always like, your boyfriend's a fucking loser.
Yeah, but anyways, they go to space and the astronauts are captured by these like sunglasses wearing guys. And then they're like, we're gonna borrow Godzilla, and if you let us borrow Godzilla and Rodan, we'll give you the cure for cancer. So that's the deal, and they're like, yeah, okay, you guys can borrow Godzilla and Rodan, and we don't mind, we can put them out on loan.
They don't ask for any proof of this cancer cure.
Yeah, they don't really, they're very trusting of the aliens.
They fly back to Earth, and
Yeah.
the aliens gave them a tape, like a cassette, and they throw the cassette in the radio, and it plays, and it's like, nice job, fucking losers, now we're gonna use Godzilla to kill you, you fucking idiots.
Yeah. So then they used the Toy Man's loud, ear-piercing, ringing toy, his toy that makes a loud, ear-piercing ring, to make Godzilla and Rodan good guys again, and
It
they
makes
beat
the
up King
aliens
Ghidorah.
die. Or
It makes-
like it makes them sick or something.
Yeah. Well, they beat King Ghidorah, and he flies off into the sunset.
Yeah.
Yep, that's the movie. It's a good one. The plot had me engaged. It was bizarre.
It's so fucking weird.
It's like, okay, so they're really just gonna do whatever
I like
genre.
how one of the human guys falls in love with one of the space girls,
Yes.
and then she just gets unceremoniously turned dust and just never brought up again.
No, he's like, I'm sad about this. And
He's
then
like,
he gets
why
over
did you
it.
kill her? And then they say, we just
She
wanted
was an
to.
alien or something.
No,
no,
the
she
other
was
aliens
insubordinate.
kill her.
Yeah. Well,
And
yeah,
then
that's
he
what the
just
aliens
drops it.
say. The aliens are like,
Yeah.
she was insubordinate or something. And we basically just felt like killing her or whatever. Because she
Yeah.
wanted to, like,
And then it's
she
just,
actually fell in love with the white man.
and then he's like, yeah.
Because the astronaut, one of the astronauts,
One of the
is a white
astronauts is
man.
white. Yep.
And he's like, wow, this is all so crazy. And then the other guy's the guy's sister, who's like, your boyfriend's a fucking loser. But then he created the big toy that is like a satellite-sized thing where it shoots sound waves.
Yep, it's pretty fun.
It's fun. It's weird.
Ebirah, Horror of the Deep. Some guys shipwreck on an island, and they find a native woman, and there's a giant lobster, and it's just a giant lobster.
There's slavery, and then Godzilla shows up.
Hold on. There's nothing like particularly monstrous about it. It's just like a regular giant lobster. And some Japanese military thing has like a slave camp, and they've enslaved the natives. And so these people who shipwrecked, who are all like greasers for some reason, and like they all know how to pick the locks to doors. I don't know. They team up with the native girl.
多数決だがどうする？俺は嫌だ。戦争反対。
And the natives are like making this fucking juice.
Yeah.
That does something, and then they change the juice so that when the military people use it, Ebirah crushes them to death. And they find Godzilla just sleeping in a cave, like somewhere between movies. Godzilla dies and ends up in a cave. And so they stab a Swami sword into the mountain and run a wire to it, and then an electrical storm comes and the lightning resuscitates Godzilla, and then Godzilla throws rocks at Ebirah. And then the island explodes as Godzilla jumps to safety in the ocean while they cheer as they float away in a net carried by Mothra. It's fucking insanity.
Yeah.
Ebirah is a terrible design. He's just a big lobster. He's really fucking boring.
The greasers stole a yacht too, or is that a different one?
That's a different one. This is the
Are
one
you
where
sure?
they make a net and fly away. Mothra carries him
Yeah,
away.
but I thought like the greasers stole the yacht and ended up on the slave island and then found the native girl. Because they were like, we gotta steal the yacht.
無断侵入、器物破損、強盗未遂。
Something like that. The plot's really stupid. There's a couple fun moments, like when they break in at the military base, but a lot of it is fairly dull. I'd call this one of the weaker ones of the Showa era for sure. So what did you think of Ebirah?
I thought it was Godzilla fights a lobster. They're on an island. Yeah, it was. I don't have much to say. He just kicks rocks at the monster. Godzilla just randomly gets revived.
I don't know if he ever punches Ebirah. He just kind of throws rocks at him.
Yeah, Godzilla. They're like, oh god, we can never get off this island. Then Godzilla kicks rocks at him, and then like the island's like about to self-destruct, and like we kind of feel bad for Godzilla. Like we kind of did him dirty.
Yeah, Godzilla didn't know to
That
jump
was
off
it.
the island himself, so they had to shout at him.
奴も別に悪気があったわけじゃ。
Yeah, they're like Godzilla like
Just
runs.
leave his ass behind.
Godzilla's just standing there staring at him in his goofy ass costume. Pretty weird.
Yeah, Ebirah's a little weak. It's a little
Speaking
weak.
of Ebirah, Godzilla has a son and he looks like a dog turd with legs. Son of Godzilla, starring Manila, is a film where researchers are researching, and then Godzilla has a son, and he shoots smoke rings. And then a bunch of bugs come after him. There's like a big spider, some praying mantises. And then they fight. And then Godzilla and Manila get frozen. after a blizzard comes, and they say, "Damn, poor Godzilla got frozen by the blizzard to awaken one day."
Yeah.
And that's the movie.
Yes.
And it was bad.
Son of
It was
Godzilla.
a bad movie.
Son of Godzilla is really
bad
fucking
movie.
boring.
It was really fucking boring. I would call it stupid.
Like, a good, like, 60% of this movie is just, like,
Manila.
Godzilla's laying on the ground trying to nap, and Manila's, like, stomping on his tail
Dude,
and rolling around in the ground. And just
it honestly has the
shitting
tone
around.
and entertainment level of a fucking Teletubbies episode. The music is kind of Teletubbies. Shocked like the smiling sun didn't look down and say, "Manila, how you doing?"
It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. There's, like,
It's awful.
a solid third of this movie is just Manila, like, just dicking around in the woods and, like, eating tree bark and shit. It's so fucking boring.
He shoots smoke rings. Godzilla kicks the shit out of his boy. 'Cause he's too stupid to shoot his
Godzilla
atomic
fucking
breath.
hates Manila.
Godzilla thinks
Manila's-
he's an asshole. And Godzilla, I like how Godzilla, like, half the time, like, half this movie, Godzilla's just like, alright, well, we fucking sat around for 20 minutes, now I'm gonna get some more sleep. Godzilla, like, starts a fire or something, and the researchers are like, whoa, that's Godzilla's boy.
Godzilla's the drunk, abusive dad. Godzilla goes to bed at 4 p.m. and he's like, "Shut the fuck up, kid," and the kid starts stomping on his tail, and Godzilla just slaps him around a little, throws him in the lake, and
Manila's
goes back
trying to
bed.
play with his Tonka trucks while Judge Joe Brown is on, and Godzilla starts hitting this kid. Child Protective
Fucking
Services shows up,
not
and Godzilla's
good.
drunk, and he doesn't know what to do.
It's very not good. In Destroy All Monsters, in the far distant future of 1999, humans have achieved world peace, and all the monsters in the world just dick around on Monster Island. And then a very common Showa era trope comes in, where the good guys, the good monsters get controlled by evil aliens and generic UFOs. And the UFOs come and they make all the monsters fight. And that's the movie. There's some good fights. There's a lot of fights. It's basically nothing but fights. The plot is terrible.
Yes.
This one's fun but bad.
I would agree. Destroy All Monsters is fun but bad. It's shockingly forgettable.
Shockingly forgettable. The only thing I remember is, like, half the time they'll just, like, cut away to these UFOs zipping around.
Like, you feel like there would be more to it, but there really isn't.
There is not.
Speaking of, you would think there's more to it. The next film is All Monsters Attack,
ありがとう。僕助かっちゃった。
which is a clickbait title. Clickbait before clickbait. Because All Monsters Attack is about a little boy who is bullied.
いや。よーしかむし。
And he wants to become a bully, but saving the environment. Kind of. I mean,
Don't forget, he gets kidnapped by bank robbers.
this is the end of the Destroy All Monsters Attack. That's kind of like the big epic Godzilla movies. And then this is also not only the second part of that duology, but the start of the environmental duology.
Yes.
All Monsters Attack, yeah, there's bank robbers, there's kidnapping. And then Godzilla fights like a weird, ugly, dragon-looking thing. And
Well,
a
no,
praying
Godzilla
mantis.
doesn't. Manila does.
Manila.
Manila.
Oh yeah, and Manila grows in size. He's like can
Yes.
turn down, or yeah,
So,
he can turn down to the size of the little boy.
little-
and it's all a dream.
It's all a dream. The little kid thinks he's best friends with Manila. And
he gains
the entire
confidence.
movie is stock footage where they just replay all of Godzilla's best moments, except for like 5 additional scenes where Manila fights this really ugly neon blue thing. And then the rest of the movie is some little kid getting kidnapped by bank robbers and doing Home Alone in a fucking abandoned warehouse. It's fucking terrible. It's legitimately like 50% stock footage and 50% some kid dicking around with imaginary Manila. Not good. Not good. Godzilla vs. Hedorah.
This is the first one that goes back to that Godzilla versus
It is.
trope
It's been a
since
while.
Mothra.
For a while, they didn't feel like they had to put Godzilla in the title, and then they decided that they do. Godzilla vs. Hedorah is very strange and fun. It's like a weird environmental message. This one tries to have a message, perhaps not as subtly as the first movie.
Yeah.
But, there's a sludge monster that's made of pollution. And there's a bunch of scientists who are like, pollution is bad and you shouldn't pollute. And this movie kind of goes wild with the action sequences. Hedorah just keeps like evolving. Like at one point he just turns into a UFO and starts shooting lasers everywhere.
This is true.
And then other times he's like just a big monster. He can only be defeated by drying him out, so the humans build this big mirror thing and Godzilla shoots it and electrifies him, but then he's not actually dead and he turns back into a UFO. There's the hilarious scene where Godzilla breathes fire and curls up into a ball to fly. And chase down Hedorah. And there's lots of really weird, trippy visuals in this movie for no reason. There's just like these weird psychedelic transitions and random scenes. And then the movie ends on like a really preachy monologue about how pollution is bad. It's fun and it's weird and it's very unique. It stands out a lot in the visuals and music. It just goes like full hippie 70s with tons of like just psychedelic visuals everywhere for seemingly no reason. It's pretty cool. What do you think?
I thought it was the first good-looking Godzilla movie since the original.
Yeah.
It mostly looks good. It's weird. It's not
It's
like a
very
flat TV show look like the
Most
other
of them.
ones. I think the message is something. The monster is kind of off the wall baddie like everything else in this series, but it tackles the environmental message well, and it doesn't
Mostly,
end. I mean,
The last
as well
5
as
minutes being a fucking...
as well as I would expect. The solution is kind of start trash on fire. Probably not the real life solution, but yeah, essentially. Where all monsters attacks conclusion is the environment's good. I had a dream where a giant turd monster fought another ugly monster. And now the bullies accept me because I've gained confidence and beat up another one of the bullies, and now I'm a bully. This one actually is just like the much more sensible solution of burn the trash.
Yeah, the Hedorah
But I thought
fights
it
are all
looked
fun.
good. I thought the music was good. The
Stylish.
fights were probably the best of the series to this point. And
I
overall,
love watching Godzilla fly. That scene's a fucking
even
riot.
though the monster, it looks like they just kind of like put a bunch of caulk on a suit and then spray painted it black.
Yeah.
It was fine. It was cool. Our next film is actually Godzilla vs. Gigan, which is the first part of the two-part Gigan duology.
Yes, it is.
Gigan is a monster from space, much like Ghidorah. And wouldn't you know it, Ghidorah shows up too. This is the one where they go to
Ghidorah's
Godzilla
popular.
Tower, I believe. Is that the one? Yeah.
Yeah, there's like a Godzilla.
Yes, because
theme
it's
park.
like the theme park, and then the aliens are taking people over, and like
Yes, they're taking the identities
they're
of dead
taking
people to make a
identities.
theme park.
right, and there's a Godzilla Tower, right, and then they fight. And you also actually have the return of what's that fucking monster from the second one?
Angirius.
Yeah, you have
Yeah,
Angirius
he
back,
actually does something in this one.
and then he just gets like his neck bit a bunch of times. I don't think he died. And then Godzilla just kind of wins. He beats them both, and Gigan and King Ghidorah fly
Well,
off
he
into
gets saved
space.
by
This one
someone
kind
comes
of
and
this one
saves
kind of
him.
has like espionage, a little bit of spy elements to it.
Yeah, a little bit.
Not fully. Maybe
Kinda
like a mystery movie.
It does have a little mystery about
The human
The-
plot is leaned into.
the
a little
mysteries.
more.
They're trying to figure out why dead people are coming back to life. I guess, kind of.
Is this also an Invasion of the Body Snatchers ripoff?
Not so much. It's just like they just find some name on a gravestone. They're like, yeah, that'll do.
They copy his body. They like copy
guess.
his body.
But it's not like he just assimilates back into life. He just uses it.
No, that's fair.
But yeah, Gigan's a pretty cool monster. I like the fights. The Godzilla theme park is really funny to me, considering that this series started with an allegory about the horror of nuclear war. Imagine
But Godzilla's a good guy now. Maybe nukes aren't so bad after all. That's what I'm starting to learn from the
the
series.
bombing of Hiroshima theme park.
Like, one day, like, you got Little Caesar's Pizza, you got Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. One day we're gonna have, like, Little Hitler's Pizza. Because, like, you know? So it's the same thing. Like, Godzilla, we'll have, like, Little Nuki's Pizza. I want to make Little Nuki's Pizza. I want to make a Godzilla theme park.
So next up is Godzilla vs. Megalon. The poster for this movie has Godzilla and Megalon fighting on the World Trade Centers, which is funny. The American poster.
It's not an American movie. I do want to point out.
No, it's
There's
not.
At no point of the moment
They don't
where
go to
went
America at all.
They don't
It's
rendezvous
just
in
something they
America.
put on the poster.
But at that time, those were like the tallest buildings, and everyone's like, "These World Trade Centers are badass," and much
Yeah.
like the Titanic, completely invincible.
Yeah, so Megalon,
That's fun.
Megalon goes full camp. This is full steam ahead on the camp. I know a lot of the previous ones also were, but there's this new guy named Megalon. He's a giant bug with drills on his hands.
This is correct.
And he teams up with Gigan. And they kick the shit out of Godzilla. He just doesn't stand a fucking chance. And then the human plot, there's a guy who builds a robot named Jet Jaguar. And Jet Jaguar has an incredible theme song.
And Jet Jaguar, when he senses kaiju activity, goes from a human-sized robot that's controlled like Alexa through voice command to a fully sentient,
yes.
60-meter tall karate robot.
Some people try to steal some mafia gangsters try to steal secrets from the lab, and somehow this gives Jet Jaguar sentience. And he gets, for some reason, Jet Jaguar gets it in his mind that he needs to beat the ever-living fuck out of Megalon and Gigan, team up with Godzilla. So Jet Jaguar grows to be the size of Godzilla, and they kick the fucking crap out of Gigan and Megalon.
Yes.
And it has some of the most bonkers action in the series, where they just went off the rails. The drop kick.
Jet Jaguar is an incredibly based character.
Yes, Jet Jaguar is really fun. The fight scenes in this movie just go full WWE, where Jet Jaguar's like spinning people over his head and body slamming them. There's the infamous drop kick where Godzilla flies like 6 miles just like through the air to drop kick Megalon while Jet Jaguar pinches his arms behind his back. It's incredibly fun. It's incredibly stupid. It's a really good time. Yeah. What'd you think of Megalon?
I thought it was incredible. Jet Jaguar is an incredible character. His arc of going from non-sentient
どうなるんだ
6-foot robot to sentient 60-meter robot.
And then
To non-sentient 6-foot robot.
he just
Is touching.
he just decides to turn his sentience back off for some reason, but
Right.
they also hint they're like if something goes down, he could get it back if he felt like
Get it back. One day maybe we'll bring him back.
Sure.
Godzilla fights a guy with a buzzsaw for a stomach and a guy with drills for hands. Him and Jet Jaguar kick the living shit out of him, and that's the movie.
Yeah, it's fun.
Speaking of fun robots like Jet Jaguar, Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. A strange second, third Godzilla comes to town. And then 5 minutes in, Godzilla shoots him and it turns out he's a big robot.
Yeah, it's a big robot made out of the skeleton of his dad.
Yes. And you know what they do? The aliens are controlling Mechagodzilla, and as you'd expect, they fight. They fight, and then Godzilla looks like he's gonna lose, but then he wins.
Yes,
Godzilla kills him.
Somewhere in the movie, Godzilla gets electrocuted and gives himself magnet powers that he can use to
Reel him in.
reel him in.
What else do you want?
That's literally what it is. He just uses the force and drags him back down and rips his head off.
Godzilla somehow becomes able to use the force effectively.
Yes, the elements I like about the movie. I like when Mechagodzilla's disguised as Godzilla and everyone's like, why is Godzilla being a fucking asshole? That's so weird. It's like, do you guys not remember 20 years ago?
Do you guys not remember, like, the times he's been brainwashed 50 times?
It's okay.
It's okay. It's an okay movie, dude.
Speaking of, I need a refresher on what the plot of the other one is.
Mechagodzilla's back up to his old tricks. Then they rebuild Mechagodzilla and they fight. That's the plot.
Oh, right. So, the alien in the Terror of Mechagodzilla, the aliens return, and there's a scientist guy who's really smart, and they kidnap him and some people who he cares about, daughter, sister, something like that. And they're like, fix Mechagodzilla or else. And he's like, okay, I'll fix Mechagodzilla.
Right.
And then Godzilla and Mechagodzilla fight again. Because Mechagodzilla was popular.
And then the daughter commits suicide or something? Yeah, she gets... What did she get shot?
She shoots herself for some reason.
She kills herself. Because she has a mechanical heart, and somehow her heart
They put like a
controls...
bomb in. Oh, yeah,
Her heart controls For some reason, they
Yeah,
revived
it's
her.
really weird.
The scientists, the aliens, revived her with the heart.
Yeah, she gets
That's fake,
electrocuted.
because she was shot when they were trying to steal the plans to...
Something.
She gets electrocuted. Because the guys burst in.
They bring her
or
back.
did the guys burst in, the electric went off, and then she gets shot.
Yes. No.
They bring her back to life.
No, she gets electrocuted.
And then the guys
come in.
show up.
The guys come in. They revive her, but they put robot parts in her. And the robot parts control Mechagodzilla. So she shoots herself so that Mechagodzilla turns
But
off,
why?
and then Godzilla beats up Mechagodzilla's lifeless husk.
Yeah, something around those lines. So she dies and
Yeah.
she kills herself.
Yep.
Tragedy.
It's okay.
It's fun. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly bonkers. I don't think I like it as much as the first one.
No, not at all.
It's just like we gotta come up with a
Mechagodzilla
reason
again.
for Mechagodzilla to come back. We can't just leave him
Mechagodzilla
hanging
was
like
popular,
that.
so they did it again.
Yeah, Mechagodzilla was popular, so they did just go ahead and do it again. So Aiden, what are your overall thoughts on the Showa era of Godzilla?
Well, I like the Showa era for the most part. Kind of excluding the first movie from the conversation, which is obviously really good, but incredibly different from all the rest.
It's isolated.
It's pretty much its own thing. I think generally the Showa movies are a lot of fun. There's some obvious terrible ones. Specifically shouting out "All Monsters Attack."
Son of Godzilla's pretty awesome.
Son of Godzilla. There's a couple that are really fucking not entertaining, but for the most part, it's big, dumb, silly, monster costume WWE with absolutely insane plots. Once the plots start to go really off the rails, it becomes more and more enjoyable as the plots just become about going to space and trading Godzilla for cancer, for the cure to cancer.
酸化水素工場破損このまま水圧引きぞ
Yeah, the show era, generally a lot of fun. You can pretty much determine how much you're going to like them by just picking any one that's not the first one, and maybe the second one. Just like pick any of the ones that we've called good and watch that, and if you think that's good, you'll probably enjoy all the rest, because they're very samey.
Yes.
They're silly, they're fun, and the show era is pretty good. Connor, what did you think of the Showa era of Godzilla?
I feel like I compare things to the timeline of Batman films a lot. Like I did it with James Bond and stuff. but I think that is pertinent in this case. It's very much not a deep series of films. I think it is fairly comparable to like Adam West's Batman, where if you like this kind of campy antics, you'll probably be entertained by the whole series. All of these films are fairly brisk. They don't take up too much of your time. They're like 75 minutes each.
Yep.
And it's just whatever stupid shit they could throw together. And it's usually batshit insane and very entertaining. I will say, Godzilla, the original, is very much in a league of its own.
Yes.
As it feels like a film with a purpose. More than the sequels, which seemingly, besides like, I mean the other ones have like minor purpose, but the number one purpose is Godzilla fight.
Yeah.
Godzilla fight very hard. So Aiden, I have to ask, what is your favorite and least favorite of the Showa era?
My favorite, I have two favorites. Obviously, the first movie, Godzilla, but that's so standout from the rest of the series that I'm going to say my actual favorite of the real Showa era is definitely Megalon for the insanity. As for the worst one, All Monsters Attack, like I said, mostly stock footage. The rest is awful.
Yes.
So, Connor, what are your favorites and least favorite?
Yeah, in a similar vein, I suppose I will set the original Godzilla off to the side. In a similar vein, that is my favorite, as it's truly a film, and it's a pretty good film at that. In terms of like the campier Showa stuff that fits more in line, I would have to say my favorite is Godzilla vs. Hedorah. Because the action's great. It's probably the only other film besides the original Godzilla that's genuinely pretty well shot.
Yeah, it has
the
a lot
music's
of really
kind of cool,
trippy stuff.
But at the same note, I really like Invasion of the Astro-Monster as like a dumb, fun sci-fi movie.
Yep.
So in terms of the very campy Showa era, Godzilla vs. the Astro-Monster is probably my favorite. Although I do think Hedorah and Godzilla, well, Hedorah is a step above and Godzilla is a couple steps above. But in terms of just like, if you want to watch a campy Godzilla Showa era movie that encompasses the other 14 films, probably the Astro-Monster would be my recommendation.
Yeah, Hedorah would be my second, I think.
I really cheated doing 3 there. But in terms of least favorite, it's hard because there's 2 that stand out as diamond bad. That being Son of Godzilla and All Monsters Attack. But I do think All Monsters Attack edges out for the most intolerably
It's all
bad.
stock footage.
It's all stock footage of a little boy being like, I want to stand up to bullies, and then it's bad. Granted, Son of Godzilla is basically an episode of Teletubbies. So, very rough. So, that was our discussion of the Showa era of Godzilla. Next, if you're a Godzilla fan, you know, we're going to the Heisei reboot series, which started in 1984 and wiped out all of the films but the first one.
Yep. Real Halloween move.
Yeah, so stay tuned for that, because we're going to discuss Godzilla some more pretty soon here.